Hello, welcome back to Leicester Fan TV. It's the Fox's Focus Show. We'll be talking about all things Leicester, not necessarily good things about Leicester, but Leicester nonetheless. I'm joined by Simon. Good evening, Simon.
Good evening to you, Jono. How are you?
Uh, Football in terms, not so good, but otherwise I'm doing well. Don't forget to leave a like, leave a comment. We'll try and get through as many comments as possible. Don't forget to follow us on all our socials down below. Good evening from Sean and good evening from Clibbo. There's been a lot happened, Simon, since we last came on last Thursday. A lot has happened. So we decided to start show a little bit earlier, just so we could just so we can talk rubbish for 40 minutes and just get our feelings out. So where did this storm begin? It began against Oxford, where our owner made a very rare appearance. And I felt in my heart the players did their absolute best to get rid of Marty. We haven't played that bad all season, and that's saying something, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the Oxford game starts with his midfield selections because we obviously had injury issues the weekend. Jordan James is out for a while. Skip, I don't think so long. He took a bit of a knock and he had a bit of concussion. Obviously, wasn't ready for the weekend. But, it was what the first thing I wanted to see on Saturday was what he was going to do in the midfield. And I was fully expecting, if I'm honest, Samare to start because he was the most experienced player left that we had available. And you kind of, when needs must, whatever's gone on before and all of the kind of mediocrity that Samare's generally provided to the club, you would have thought he would have put him in. Obviously, Samare has gone now today. He's gone down to Qatar. So I guess that was in the mix at the weekend. They knew that was coming. So I guess it didn't play him because it didn't want him to get injured and then the whole thing fall through. So it kind of makes sense afterwards. But the initial selection in midfield with Page and Chowdhury, and then what he did in the second half after that, going for just filling the midfield with young attacking midfield kids, to me just kind of summed it up. The whole thing was a mess. Oxford clearly are not. I mean, no disrespect if there's any Oxford fan watching, but they're a League One team for me. But the difference was that they were industrious, they were passionate, they were productive, and they wanted 3 points, and we didn't, and that was the difference. And ultimately it was a new low, in terms of following Leicester, especially this season. It was a new low in terms of performance, and the goals that we gave away were just soppy goals, and the whole thing was a complete calamity. What did you make of it, Jono?
I just thought it was. I think it just showed the mess that Leicester City are in. It's now you can't hide it anymore. Fans can't be under the delusion that we're still like this rail rank clubs was having a bad time. The bubble has finally burst for a lot of fans. I think after the reaction after the game summed it up really. It was a horrendous atmosphere, and I'm really happy Top was here to see it because this is the reality of the football club that he owns. And I think it makes everyone realise that they appointed the wrong manager, or they appointed the manager and then they moulded him into the style of football they wanted. I don't know, but for me, it just felt like this is now out. It's now out there. The tactics are just awful. The players are awful. The atmosphere is awful. The manager's awful. The owner is awful. There's the only positive is the youngsters and the training facility. But if I'm a youngster and I'm thinking, yeah, the facilities are good, but why would I stay here? What future do I have here? That's so. That's the Oxford game. Now, after the game, everyone knew he was going to get sacked. Everyone knew Top was there. Top's only there when he has something to do, and he got sacked. What do you think about his sacking? Do you agree with it? Do you think it was all Marty's fault? Do you think Top handled it badly? What are your thoughts about it all?
Um, well, two ways to look at it for me. It's kind of a tale of two kind of things that I'm conflicted about. The first one is they spent no money for Marty Cifuentes. And I suspect that when he had that meeting, we assume at some point on Sunday with the owner and Rudkin, etc., I suspect that there was an element of conversation coming back from Marty Cifuentes in terms of, if you want to turn this around, you need to support me. Because he's largely inherited a group of players that have got issues for various different reasons. He's been given a few loan players. Obviously, Jordan James has worked out handsomely until he got injured. Others like Ramsey less so, even though he looks promising. He's got injured fairly quickly and hasn't really had a chance to have an impact. But you could argue that Cifuentes came to the party late in the summer because of the circumstances. He's been given no support. He's not really been given the opportunity to try and mould the squad into his own vision because he's not been given any money to spend. We've brought in loan players that, some have worked out, some haven't. We haven't got a striker. You got Jamie Vardy going in the summer, and the club's had years to get to under the skin of that and try and find an antidote to that, because that was always going to be a massive issue for the club when he left, and they did nothing about it at all. And they left us with giving the number 9 shirt to Jordan Ayew and expecting him to score goals when, even when he was a much younger man, that wasn't really his game.
No.
That half of it. Now, the other half of it is the fact that you could sit here now and give a whole long line of what I would consider to be tactical and substitution game management mistakes that Cifuentes made during the 6 months that he ran the club. There was a lot of negativity in there. As we've said many times on this show, the football started off in a much more aggressive, positive way. And as the games and the weeks rolled by, it got more and more pensive, slow, negative, lots of passing around the back. I think I saw a stat after the game at the weekend that said almost the majority of our passes on Saturday were backwards rather than forwards. And you start to look at it in that way, and you think, well, actually, this guy's not done himself any favours. He's increasingly encouraged the team to retreat into their shell and become this negative entity. And then his management, we get one goal up in games because we can't score anymore because we've not got goals in the team. And then we're trying to protect a one goal when we haven't kept a clean sheet for weeks. And so it's been, he's got himself to blame as well for me. Jono, I don't know what your thoughts are on Cifuentes' tenure.
We said clean sheet for weeks. That's been very generous because it's been not clean sheet for months. I think it's majority to do with the owners, and Cifuentes didn't help himself. When Marty came in, the club told him there is not much money. The club told him that the resources are low. This is what you got to work with, which is fair enough. But I don't know if the loans were his or if they were the club's, because the club's history or track history of signing loans has been abysmal. Even before any man, with Edouard last season, and that was one of the worst loans I've ever seen in my life. But Jordan James is good, but that's the only highlight really. But apart from that, he's had no support from the club. The club haven't backed him. The club haven't come out and said, we support Martinez and his vision. He's been left out to dry by the board. So I do feel sorry for him, because I've been saying I want to see him in the summer get to have his own, try to get any signings in to mould his team for the next season. But obviously he didn't get the chance. And the reason why he didn't get the chance is because, as you said, he's making too many schoolboy errors. The game that did it for me is he played Chowdhury at right back and Ben Nelson at left back, playing centre backs in wing back positions. And then after one player got injured, he put Ricardo at right back and then put Chowdhury back in the midfield again. I'm like, if Luke Thomas is that poor, but I'd rather have Luke Thomas than a bloody centre back and left back. So he's trying to put square pegs in round holes. So even though I think the board have been awful, not helping him at all, really, but he's got himself to blame as well, because he's not been tactically inept. But again, it's really frustrating, because I feel he has the potential to be a good manager, because I've seen what he can do. I've seen there's been a flurry of form in the season where we've been really good. I saw the beginning of the preseason we were very good against very, very good teams. But I think for me, the catalyst is the board. The board has been the catalyst for a lot of failings, and I think this is one of them as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add one more thing to that as well, is that if you actually look at some of the interviews when Cifuentes first turned up, he's quite a different character to the press conferences and whatever he was giving towards the last few weeks. He becomes increasingly serious. His face is more contorted and frowning. He looks quite defensive. I guess he probably felt a little bit under threat by the end. But it's a shame, really, because I think he came in with the right intentions. And, from what they say, he paid part of his own compensation to QPR to get out. And I think he came in with the right ideas. This group of players have kind of rinsed out another manager for me.
And this is where I'm actually looking forward to this summer, because we get to get rid of these big personalities for good. Like Samare's, I think Samare's, everyone wants Samare gone. There's a comment earlier said one positive is Samare's gone, but there's more players that needs to happen to. One of them is Daka. It's just a big mess. And we're going to go into the interviews now. And there's this comment here that says, the majority of our supporters do not understand why we are where we are. Put up a poll and you'll get 10 different answers. That is why we do not have any real protests. If someone said to you, what's the main reason for Leicester's downfall? If you ask 20 different fans, 15, you'll get 15 different answers. It's the bad signings, it's the bad loans, it's the breaking PSR 4 years ago, it's the death of Vichai, it's John Rudkin. It's all just a big mess. And Top has had 2 chances to express his opinion, express the problems twice to us. One towards the end of the last year, and again on the weekend when he came down. And every time he's done that, he's created more problems than he has actually answered them. First of all, one thing I will say is I'm happy he's actually spoken not just to Leicester press, but the actual reporters from Sky, because they're not going to beat around the bush. They're going to give him straight questions about PSR and against stuff, that sort of stuff. So I'm happy he did that. But the answers he gave and the way he said it, I know there's might be a language barrier because it's not his first language, but some of the comments he said about some of the questions is very, very baffling and very, very concerning, and kind of disrespectful to the fans, I feel, in some way, because he's not giving us what we need, really.
I think for me, I picked up the early interview with Radio Leicester, and then on the Monday when the rest of it came out and Sky, Rob Dorset and all the rest of it came out, I watched both of those, and then there was an interview in The Guardian. I read that. They were all pretty much the same thing for me. I didn't really feel anyone really went and asked the difficult questions, because there are, for me, some quite difficult questions in there. It felt quite gentle. I don't know whether that was kind of agreed before he went in, and there were some red lines in that or not. We won't know, but it felt a little bit like a parallel universe to me. Jono, obviously, as fans, we're living it. We're turning up. We're having to, we're paying to watch it, and we've seen it decline. No, not just this season, but for a little while. And as you said, I mean, I think the owner's been twice in recent times to games. He's largely in Thailand. I respect the fact that Leicester City is not his only concern, but what the club desperately needs right now, for me, is some leadership. Both for the manager, for the players, for the fans. For everybody, the club needs some leadership. It needs someone at the helm who's visible, who's vocal, who's passionate, and who's making the right noises about trying to fix these problems. Now, Top did give some encouragement and kind of said, look, it's the club's like the sun, and I care a lot, and don't think I don't, and just because I'm not here, and all of that type of stuff, which is fine, but that's not what we're seeing as fans. You can say it, but where's the actual action? Because the reality of the situation was that was all done on the Sunday. He said he was going to support the manager in the Radio Leicester interview that was released, and then he sacked the guy 4 hours later. So something must have got on between the two, right? Whether other people got involved and the decision got changed, or whether Cifuentes sat down and they came to a mutual agreement that Cifuentes didn't think in the circumstances he could do any better. Who knows? But ultimately, the next thing that happens is that the owner gets on a plane the next morning and flies back to Thailand. Now, unless I've missed something, we've got no CEO at the club. Or I know Top's the temporary CEO, but we've got no permanent CEO. We've got no director of football. We've got no commercial director. So you would assume that all of those plates are being spun by John Rudkin and this young lady that he put in place to help him out, which to me, I think most fans would agree that we're in a situation at the minute which is perilous. If we get a points deduction,
when we get the point deduction,
yeah, then we're heading for a relegation fight, and the guy that can kind of make the big decisions and lead from the front has gone home. So I just, the whole thing was, whilst I appreciate some of the sentiment, and obviously I absolutely respect what his family's done for the club historically. History is history, and we are where we are now. And I just don't feel like it's being taken seriously enough for me, Jono.
No. Well, let's look at it a bit deeper, because there's a few questions and answers which he gave in those interviews, which I want to just break down a little bit more. So it was asked about John Rudkin, and he kind of beat around the bush by saying like he's the bad cop, and he laughed. Now, I do understand that it might have been the catalyst for us winning the Premier League, but Top's living in the dream world. He still believes that we should be really appreciative, and so we're still buzzing about that Premier League win from 10 years ago. But the problem was 10 years ago. We're not in the Premier League anymore. We're not fighting for Europe anymore. We're not playing against any big, massive clubs anymore. We're fighting for our lives in the Championship, and he still believes that the same guy who got us the title is going to help us survive this, and it's not there. It's
I mean, the bit he's forgetting about that is, he's trying to protect John Rudkin. He's obviously close to the guy, right? Which is his prerogative, okay? And he's trying to say, look, you're just picking on him as the villain. But number one, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Owner, there is no one else to pick on, right? No. You've left the lad holding the baby for everything, so he is going to get picked on. Number two, you would assume given the fact that he's been in the role as director of football, he's been instrumental in some of these incredibly high wages that have been paid to absolute mediocre players that don't care, that they're just there for the wage. They're not passionate about playing for Leicester. I mean, Harry Winks, being, to my knowledge, the highest earner now, won't even move near the club to commit to being able to be available when he's needed. He's running up and down the M1. So it would be common sense for most of us, layman looking in, that John Rudkin's been largely responsible for a lot of that business. So given the fact it's been bad business, are we wrong to be critical of that? Because we've got those huge wages round our neck, meaning that so far we haven't even had a sniff of anything this window, because you'd imagine there's no money. And we've got to pay 2.5 years of Cifuentes' contract up now.
So all that money we could have got to get a signing, a striker, or a decent loan striker for the rest of the season is now gone. That striker we were linked with, forgot his name, Diabate,
yeah.
He's gone. He's now gone to another club, so that chance has disappeared.
Well, I think that was Cifuentes, because he made comment the week before he got sacked, saying that because of the Swedish winter break, he hadn't played for a month, and he was concerned about that. So I think we probably walked away from it because of that, which to me is again nonsense, because anything right now, anything of any sort, is better than what we've got at the minute, really.
Another thing that's concerning for me is the leadership, because whenever we make big decisions, it's always when he's at the club, which, as you alluded to, is barely any. He's been 2 or 3 times since the season has started. But the lack of communication between the owner to the board and the board to the squad is so bad. Like, it's blatant to see that the board are doing their own thing. The board are like, here's a new manager, you do what you want to do, and then the board are just running around headless, because, as you said, there's no leader at the helm. And he did come on his interview and said, right, we need a new CEO, we need a new sporting director, and we need a new person who does communication, which is great. But you said that last time. You said that in your last interview when you said we need those sort of things. So you're saying all these things to try and make us believe that you know what you're doing, but where's the evidence?
And how many other larger football clubs, because despite the state we're in, we historically, especially the last 10, 12 years, we're a big club. How many big clubs would leave themselves with no CEO, no technical director, and no commercial director all at the same time?
None.
I mean, it's just absurd. You imagine,
Well,
Jono, you worked in a factory, right? And you turned up every day for work at 8 o'clock, and you did an 8-hour shift, right? And every day, apart from 2, your boss wasn't there. Not there. You're just making, you're just doing what you think's right. Do you see what I mean? Any organisation needs a leader, and that leader has to inspire the people that work for him to do their best and set the standard. Who's setting the standard at Leicester City for these players, or are they just making it up? Because it's like the tail's been wagging the dog at Leicester, player-wise, for a while. Some of these players have been disruptive for managers, I think, over the last couple of seasons. And who's there to pull that in line and straighten that out?
There's no one. And the thing is Top clearly knows nothing about football. He doesn't have a footballing brain. He doesn't understand how it works, which is fine. You don't need to know a lot about football to be an owner of a football club. But that must mean you must have people who know what they're doing in the football club when you're not there to run the club like a football club. But there's no one there to run the football club, which is why players like Skip are being signed for £25 million. It's just completely.
I mean, any owner, Jono, would want professional people in their organisation that know the job, that have got professional experience. I mean, if we go out right now, me and you, and start a business, and we're looking to hire staff, what we're going to do? We're going to put an ad out, and we're going to employ staff based on their experience, their dedication, their attitude. You're going to employ specialists to do a job that you need them to do.
Yeah.
Right. I bet most owners in football aren't. They're not experts. They're not. Most of them, if not all of them, aren't ex-players. They're not ex-managers. They're businessmen, successful businessmen, which is great. But you need specialists to run your club. You can't. It's a bit like starting a business up in something you've got no idea how to run or what that industry is. You're probably gonna fail. You need people that know what they're doing.
Look at Wrexham. Ryan Reynolds knew nothing about football. He didn't know about how football was played. Didn't know about the rivalries in football, about the players. He didn't know the players, but he bought a football team, and they are absolutely thriving. The club scenes as one. The fans are passionate. Ryan Reynolds is a famous actor who's always in films, but yet he's always at game. Well, his majority of the time at games. How does he have the time to go to every single football match? But yet Top doesn't. Yet Top isn't the CEO of King Power anymore. He doesn't have that responsibility at the King Power as much as he did. So why can't we re-ran like Wrexham is ran? Yes, right. Ryan Reynolds doesn't have the footballing brain, but his club is ran perfectly. They're not overspending. They're getting good players. Then all the fans are together. That's how a football club is ran at this level. That's done properly. We don't have that sort of togetherness. We used to, but not anymore. And that's what Top is in it. That's why Top's in Dreamland.
Well, again, anything that's going to be successful needs coherent, goodwill. It needs everybody is in unison on side. During those heyday years, we had that. The fans are very much on board with the owners. A lot of the key players in the side, I would say most of the players, bought in to what the owners and the club were trying to do. There was a strategy and a plan that was built on growth, in terms of, for good or bad, new training ground, then expansion of stadium, and where that all comes unstuck is we make some really, really bad decisions in the transfer market. We end up lurching the squad into a very overpaid mediocrity. Let's be honest. And that season, the stats of that season, we went down. When we got that win against West Ham in the last game of the season, when Maddison and Tielemans and etc. left, and we went down that season. The stats of that season are frightening. The amount of money we were the highest. In terms of income to salaries, we were paying more than any club in the Premier League. And we got relegated. When you actually distill all of that down, and Top says in the interviews, because he was asked that. I can't remember which interview it was, but he said that everyone just kept telling me it would be
I
all
don't
right.
know why we got relegated.
But he kept saying that the players, the
Who are
manager,
you employing
John
then?
Rudkin, everyone was telling him, "Oh, don't worry, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. We're fine. We're fine. We're fine." Of course, we weren't. And that is the beginning of the disaster that's unraveling now, really, because it's just been rats of a sinking ship ever since.
Well, Top need, because it's a sort of a really, really good comment here, and Top needs to get real and take emotion out of the picture, because Maresca wanted Rudkin out, Potter wanted Rudkin out, Rogers brought in his own sporting director in, and under Rogers we're a very good team. There's a reason why all these managers who wanted to come in, or managers that did come in, want their own their own separate team with them of people to come in and help him, is because Rudkin is really bad at his job. He's really bad at his job, but Top's emotional relationship with Rudkin is overthinking the actual job at hand, which is saving Leicester City, and he's just too scared to say to him, it's been amazing, but your time is up. Until he makes that decision, and if Rudkin is still making these decisions, we're going to still suffer.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, just to add on to that as well, I picked up in I can't again. I'm sorry, I can't remember which one of the interviews it was, but Top alluded, he was quite outspoken about Enzo Maresca's departure from the club. He used the word "stole" and said that Chelsea had stolen Maresca from us. And then he went on to say that kind of all of the strategy that had been done after he got promoted back to the Premier League prior to Maresca's exit had been built around the football philosophies of Enzo Maresca, which I guess we all know are quite one-dimensional. He's got this kind of Guardiola type way of playing, and he was Top was kind of alluding to that, the acquisitions that were coming in terms of players, allied with the philosophy and the way the squad had been constructed. And let's not forget that the club, the season before that, the summer before that, when Maresca came, had allowed Maresca to remove most of the backroom staff and employ his entire team, which then also all walked back out the door 1 year later when Maresca went to Chelsea, and they all went with him. Assistant manager, fitness coach, all in and all out, goalkeeping coach, the whole lot. So we got stripped. But when I had a chance to digest that, you kind of think, well, hold on a minute. Did you never consider that if Enzo Maresca was highly successful at Leicester in that Championship promotion season, there was always going to be the threat of a larger club coming in, given his pedigree, he'd worked with Guardiola and all of that stuff, and try and poach him. And if that did happen, there was a very good chance that Maresca would be interested, because he probably saw Leicester as a stepping stone on something bigger, right? So the club are naive if they just kind of went all in on that, not thinking that there was any threat of that coming to an end if it actually worked out.
I'll pause you for a second, because that same thought process was the same thought process to what he said about us getting relegated, because he said, I had no idea why we got relegated. So our club are really bad at planning for the future. They're the here and now. They don't plan anything, do they? And that, from your same
I think they
process,
do, but the planning that they make is very one-dimensional. I mean, if he's alluding to that as their strategy, that strategy is make or break, and is entirely based around Maresca and him continuing to be successful. Now, when he does get poached, he was sat on the beach somewhere on holiday from memory, and Chelsea flew over and had conversations with him, and the next thing you know, he's away. We signed Vestergaard on a 3-year contract in the meantime. Anyway, right, when that does happen, if you sit down as an owner and a director of football, and you say, right, we weren't expecting that. That's really scuppered our plans for this coming season. Surely, given the fact that you understand that you've built a squad around that philosophy, you go out and you try and find a manager in a similar vein in terms of their football style, football philosophy. Corberan at West Brom at the time comes to mind. Similar sort of philosophy, similar ideas, similar structure. But what did we do, Jono? Well, I'll tell you what we did. We went and got Steve Cooper, who you couldn't really get much more chalk and cheese to what Maresca was doing to Steve Cooper. And then you wonder Why the
or it
squad that,
didn't
by your
work.
own admission, you built around Maresca's philosophy is struggling to perform under a completely different setup.
Well, looking back, I'm actually really shocked how well actually Steve Cooper did with that team, because everyone thought he did a really bad job, but he was the manager who kept us out of the relegation zone during his time. And then afterwards, had Ruben Nistelrooy, and then the team just plummeted. So it just shows how good of a job I think Steve Cooper actually did with the team that he did get. But again, this team is reactionary. They don't look at, they just assume the manager would fix everything. But if the players are used to playing a certain style of football and you've got certain players who can't do certain things, you can't just get any manager and expect to have their own philosophy and just do it. We've got a centre back, Vestergaard, who can't run. And then you go, let's put both our fullbacks forwards, so when we lose the ball, all we've got is Vestergaard to chase the ball down. It makes no sense.
It doesn't. I mean, just obviously, if that armchair jockey just dropping in there saying sorry, Cooper was clueless. I respect your opinion, but I don't agree with that. If I'm honest, I think Steve Cooper assessed our squad, realised that we were going to be in a relegation battle, from the summer. He also understood that there wasn't going to be a huge ability to reinvent the squad. And I actually think he tried to set us out to give us the best chance in games. And when you actually look at the last couple of seasons, if you include this season in it, of the managers we've had, I'd probably say he's the one who had most of an idea in terms of being realistic about what we had available in terms of playing squad and trying to find some way to squeeze some points out of it. Let's not forget, we weren't in the relegation zone when Steve Cooper left. And I'll hold my hands up and say I got that wrong because I was eager for him to get gone. But I think that was a mistake in hindsight.
It was a mistake, and I mean, starting on the road, we had a really good win against West Ham, but even then the statistics were awful because we had like 80 shots against us. Then we had the Brighton game, which we got back in just, and then I went to the Newcastle game myself and we got absolutely thumped. But yeah, it's just been awful, and his interviews hasn't helped scenarios. They've made it worse, in my opinion. It's made us realise that that top is clueless and is relying on people who are also clueless, and that's really scary for Leicester fans, because if you've got a whole group of people who don't know what they're doing, it's just going to collapse them, isn't it?
If most of your communication with the organisation you're running is on Teams calls or Zoom or down on a mobile phone, etc., and the people back at the place of the club are telling you everything's fine, you can't check and balance that because you're not there.
No.
So you're relying on a small group of people to give you a window on what's going on. You're not there to go and ask around and hunt about a bit and figure it out and get the feel. You've only got to turn up at the training ground, I'm sure, to get the feel of it. But if you're not there, you can't do that. So he's been reliant on other people to be telling him for a while what's going on. And those interviews felt for me detached, and I think that maybe that's some of the problem, because he's not around.
He didn't read the room, did he? He didn't read the room. From the Leicester fans' point of view, he didn't realise how annoyed we actually are, and I think he's now realised the fans are unhappy and the club's in a worse state than it was whenever he came back. But we've got 10 minutes left. We can just moan about his interviews forever and ever. We're going to talk.
Where do you want to go, Jono? Because there's manager talk, manager gossip. There's the game at the weekend. There's Andy King in charge. I mean, there's still loads to go at. There's so much going on at the minute. It's but unfortunately, most of it isn't particularly positive. I mean, let's talk about Andy King then, Jono. I mean, obviously, he's definitely going to be in charge this weekend. Most of the stuff going around about other managers doesn't seem to be any more than paper talk and rumours. There's no one really that anyone's talking about with any seriousness at the moment. So we're not imminently signing a manager. So what do you think, firstly, about Andy King taking the team at the weekend? And in addition to that, if that ends up being a longer term scenario, are you happy with that?
Well, I think Andy King might be an instant favourite because of what Andy King is to Leicester. He's, you know, he was with us from when we were in League One all the way up to we won the Premier League. He understands what the fans want. He understands what Leicester City is. He understands what type of football we like. He understands what the passion is. He understands what we need. However, what we said behind closed doors before we came on here is that he's been under two managers who have been awful. Yes, we're all praising him for that pre-season. This pre-season, so he got all the players ready for when Marty came in. That was really good. But will he just go with what the players have been doing for the past 6 months, or will he go, look, let's just go back to basics, just play counter-attacking football, which is what we've got songs on, with the fans singing week in, week out. I want to be part. I want to go. I wish I was going to just be passionate, but after those interviews, I think everyone's just deflated and has no passion really. But I think he can do a good job. I think if he plays counter-attacking football, which we want to see, then I think we can get a result, and I think he'll do well. But I don't. Is he the person to give it permanent job to? He'll need 2 or 3 games for me to give that opinion, not just one. But I'll happily take Andy King over Russell Martin. I've just checked the odds just now, and Russell Martin is 4-1. Do not. If they get Russell Martin, I'm done, because they obviously they've got no vision. If they get Russell Martin, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, on the Russell Martin thing, I'm in the same place as you. If they appoint Russell Martin as manager, I probably won't bother going down there again this season, because it is literally just more of the same. Watching them tap it around the defence and spend 3/4 of the game just passing it around and with no end product at all. And I think most of us are absolutely sick to the back death of having to endure watching that week in, week out. So I'm an absolute no for that as well. I think the King thing for me is a massive gamble. You know, like you say, he understands the club. He'll understand, because he's been there a while, exactly the problems that are at hand. But without support, without someone more experienced to help him out and get around him and say, and give him some guidance, with a points deduction coming, he's going to be in a relegation fight. That's a huge amount of pressure on someone that's never managed a football club. Whether he loves the club or not, it's huge amount of risk for me. And if they do roll that dice, and they might be forced to because of financial situations, we're kind of gambling with the future of the club a little bit, because if we go down to League One, it doesn't even bear thinking about the sort of calamity that will be in terms of the state of the club will be in that situation.
Imagine having Vestergaard and 50 grand a week in League One. Jesus Christ. I mean, if we go in League One, I reckon there'll be mass protests to get Top out, because I can't see him surviving at the club if we do go down. But everyone's saying, everyone started the season saying we're going to get promoted. I've been saying it from minute one. We're not getting promoted this season. But now there's a high chance. I never thought we could get relegated. I knew we'll be around mid-table, but I never ever thought we'd be in a relegation fight. Even with the players we do have, then never thought we'd be in a relegation battle.
When that points deduction hits, we've got to find top 6 form to drag ourselves away from the bottom 3. We'll end up either in it or just above it, depending on how many points we get deducted. At that point, we're going to have to hit top 2, top 6 form for a month or so, or 6 weeks, to get ourselves a cushion away from that. When have we done that all season so far?
Once. For 3 games.
We've never, exactly. One little spell. We've never strung a group of results together this season that's made, people keep saying every week, we're only 4 points off the playoffs, we're only 6 points off the playoffs. But we're 4 or 6 points off the playoffs every week, because we're a mid-table mediocrity side as it stands. That points deduction puts us in to a relegation fight. Now, you would assume that, Oxford, obviously had the Oxford chap on last week. They've signed 5 players in this window, right? They're trying to engineer. They've changed the manager. They're trying to engineer a situation where they can get ourselves out of the bottom 3. Obviously, Sheffield Wednesday will be waving the white flag because of their situation, but the other teams in and around the bottom three will be trying to improve their circumstances to get enough points to keep themselves up. Leicester are going to end up thrown in that, having signed nobody, potentially with no manager. The whole thing has got relegation written all over it. Let's be honest. We've got no one running the club either. It's frightening. It's tangible as well that we could go down if they don't make the right decisions quickly.
Yeah, I mean, didn't they take over when we were in League One? I think the family took us over when we were in League One. I think, or Championship.
It was Milan Mandaric that was in charge, and he sold it to them. My memory of it is we were lurking around the bottom of the Championship when they signed us, from memory.
Yeah. This club can't survive going to League. Imagine us being the only team in history to win the Premier League and go into League One.
Well, it's absolutely plausible with the state we're in,
Yeah.
And I mean, Top himself said in those interviews, we need quick action. We need quick action.
Where is it?
We're Thursday night. The transfer window shuts on Tuesday at 7:00 in the evening. So there's not even any rumours of us looking at players at the minute. Nothing. Who's playing in midfield on Saturday, Jono? You would hope Skip's fit again. But who else is playing in midfield alongside him? Because James ain't going to be fit now till probably end of February. So we need a midfielder. We've just let Samari go out the door. We've got no striker. We've had 23 games without a clean sheet. We gave 2 soppy goals away against Oxford at the weekend, which were, a long throw being the first one in the first 5 minutes. It's shoddy. Who's doing something about it?
Well, you would hope Top, but he's now 4,000 miles away back in Thailand. And the problem is that, all of us will always really appreciate Top for what he's done for Leicester, but I'm very afraid that will be tarnished with what he did do to the club by getting us relegated to League One, and that's not forgivable.
And do all of a sudden out of nowhere, with Cifuentes gone, and obviously the rift between him and Winks being erased, does Winks just walk back into the team on Saturday, Jono? In your opinion?
No, because if I was a player, I would have been annoyed at him because. And it doesn't matter how much you want to be there or not. You signed the contract. If you don't leave, you signed the contract. You've got to oblige by it. I'd be really pissed if I was at work and someone in my team said I'm not working here anymore, and that messes up the structure of the team. I wouldn't want to work with him anymore. I'll be thinking, is he playing for the sake of it, or is he playing for the team? So. He should, if we got no option, he might have to walk back in. But if I was his teammate, I would not be happy for him to do so, because how he acted. You should not have, as a player, they have too much power to just, for the toys at the Premier League, be paid 80 grand a week to sit on their arse all day.
Well, and in addition to that, who's he been training with for this last few weeks? Has he been training with the first team squad? Has he been training with the kids? Has he not been training at all? We don't know. No. I mean, don't even know if he's match fit or whether he's done enough training to be in the position to walk back in the side. And but I would add to this, given the wages he's earning and given the well, there we go. Richard's saying he's not even been training. So if that's the case, it's not even an option because the lad will not be in a position to put 90 minutes at a high level on the pitch on Saturday. But then who do you play? I mean, if Skip's in fit, then there's one. Who goes in next to him? Do you put Chowdhury in there? Do you do Louis Page again? Because that didn't work for me at the weekend. In playing in a centre midfield role, didn't look right. Who plays there? Because there's nothing. We're getting thin now on the ground. I mean, as you said, we've been playing a centre back at left back, and then he got injured because Nelson's injured now as well after the weekend again. So then Thomas has to come back in when the manager's dropped him for the 2 games before in favour of a centre back. Does Thomas just drop back in on Saturday now?
Yes.
When he's been, not great this season. Maybe we'll see a cloud lift on Saturday, and maybe the Cifuentes sacking will will ease some of this, and we'll see some of them improve their performance. But kind
No,
of feels to me
there's
like we need a disciplinarian in there to kind of put a bomb under some of these and get them actually turning up at a weekend.
we are just a headless chicken as a football club. There's no. It's just everyone fends for themselves and do what they want. And all I do want now is just the fans to stick together, because I've seen people fighting. I've seen everyone arguing on forums. I've seen people just for. I just want one part of Leicester City to be like together. The fans need to just look. We're all in this. No matter what's happening, we're all in this crap together. We're all facing the same possibility of our football club we love dearly going down to League One. I think we do need to stick together. I do think we need to be, even though we're not happy with the club at the moment, support the lads on Saturday, because the last thing the players want is to be booed when Andy King's having his first game. And I think there needs to be an organised protest against the owner, because he's sleepwalking us into a lot of them going to be booting on us administration, because we've got such high. When we go to, if we go to League One, one player have more wages than the entire division put in one go. So we need to act together.
I'm not sure we've got enough coherent opinion amongst our fan base to pull that off. That's
come to a point where we go down enough to there to be a mutual decision that every fan is in the same boat, that this has to change.
Well, how far have we got to fall before the majority of fans? Because
League One.
Okay, fine. I mean that would mean administration, I would imagine, with the sort of wage bills we're carrying, because there's no way that the club could financially sustain itself on the income in League One.
No.
So that's a deep hole that we've got to dig in order to get our fans on the same page. Because at the minute, whilst there is a lot of, I mean, you can see it coming in tonight on the comments, and obviously, Jono and I really appreciate you getting involved. But there is a lot of anger out there, but there's also a fair lump of support for the ownership and for continuing along this vein.
But they're living in 26. People have the right to support this club or any football club the way you want. I'm supporting till you die, and no matter what happens, I'll still love my club. And that you do you, that's fine. But I don't want to be seeing my club going to League One when we've experienced Premier League football. Because we've got the infrastructure to be a Premier League team. We've got a bigger stadium than Bournemouth and Crystal Palace, Wolves. We've got bigger stadiums than all of those teams. We've got the best training facility in Europe. We're acting like a League Two team, and what's worst of all is what people spending. What's the worst thing is if people are trying their best. If the board owner was still there and everyone was trying, but fair enough, it's not gone right. But when people are spending thousands of pounds a year on tickets to go to see their club, and they play like that, and the club is run the way it is, we have every right to protest, and we should have every right to be pissed off. I'm pissed off.
Likewise, frustrated. You can see it coming, and you feel like the club's just sleepwalking into it piece by piece, just making bad decision after bad decision. But that aside, as a fan base, until we get coherent on the same page and we start to talk with the majority, obviously you're never going to get everybody, and that's fair enough. But until we start to get on the same page and really start to make that more vocal and more obvious than just the kind of, it's not fringe, but it feels a bit 50-50 at the minute. You've got half of the fan base that's really quite worried and concerned, and the rest is going, no, just get behind the team and shut your mouth. It does feel a bit 50-50, and you can feel that in the stadium.
Yeah,
you can feel that kind of division. We've got to get on the same page, and I guess this next few weeks and what happens in terms of what a manager we appoint or not, what players we get or not, what management of the club in terms of CEO, etc., we get or not, will ultimately dictate where the club ends up and how the fan base end up falling. This is a this is the biggest period under the King Power ownership for me in terms of pivotal. You know,
Yeah.
it's great to take the plaudits of winning the league, and obviously they're absolutely massively instrumental in that, and we all respect them for it. But this is the pivotal moment now. Either we're going to make some good decisions and start to turn this ship back round, or it's going to continue sinking and
You're too gone. You'd be too far
yeah,
gone.
the ramifications of that are just catastrophic.
They will be. But look, I just think the game against Charlton, I'm not going in with any expectations. I'm not going in expecting to win. I'm not going in and expecting the crowd to be loud. I'm not going expecting to clip a clean sheet. I'm just going to watch to see what Andy King has changed with his tactic and see what masterclass he can sum up with the players that he got given. And if he can get something out of those players that he's got given to bring out a performance, I massive praise to him, because he's the biggest under pressure man apart from the owner. He's under a lot of pressure to get a tune out of these players, not only performance wise, but actually put players in positions that they belong in. So I'm going to go.
I mean, Group 1. Sorry, before butting, but clean sheet for me is ground zero at the moment.
Yeah. No. Yeah. 23 games. I don't even know. I'm going to go for 1-0 win to Leicester, because I think the crowd will get behind Kingy.
Okay, interesting. So you're going for that clean sheet, and I absolutely.
I believe in Andy King understanding what Leicester wants, what the fans want, and the fans being behind him.
I think there'll be a fair win behind Andy King on Saturday. You know, it's a lunchtime kickoff. Probably be another cold, quite windy, wet one. But I think there'll be a lot of goodwill for Andy King in the stadium on Saturday. So I think that will help, and I think hopefully the players will pick up on that a little bit. I just can't see how we're keeping a clean sheet, because
no one is agreeing with me. Everyone's gone 2-1, 2-1, 1-1.
It's kind of got score draw in it for me, if I'm being
1-1.
honest. Kind of 1-1, 2-2, somewhere in there. I think there'll be a bounce, but I just don't think this group of players has got enough bounce in them to make it significant. So without any new blood in the squad, it's score draw 1-1. I'll go.
Well, I think the players will be uplifted. I just hope Kingy is installing the passion that he knows that, you know, he's been through Leicester from the lowest times to the best times. He knows what it means to be a Leicester player, and what it means to play for this badge, what the fans expect from the players. And yeah, I'm hoping that's the case. But if that happens, I'll be topless next stream. Right, hold me to that. If we win 5-0, I'll be topless next stream. But I think we'll end it there.
I'm trying to fathom out, Jono, where 5 goals in that team is coming from.
Yeah, that's why I'd be topless if we win that game. But
stick Vestergaard up front. He's got an
yes, do that. So we'll end it there. Thank you, Simon, for joining me. It's been really appreciated.
Yeah, long one tonight. I think it was good to get on early and get all that out, because there was a lot to go over tonight. There's a lot going on. We need some answers, don't we? Hopefully, by the time you and I are together this time next week, we've had some players before the window shuts, and we've got a little bit of direction and clarity on where the manager's job's going, etc. Because I think, for me, we need some experience in there right now, because this is precarious.
It is. We're teetering. It's literally, we're squeaky bum time in the club stature now, which is on off the pitch.
And I'll stick my name to Nigel Pearson. For me, Nigel Pearson until the end of the season, for me, is the right decision. And you keep Andy King around him to help him out.
Yeah, I agree. We appreciate you all for watching. Thank you for leaving your comments. Don't forget to leave a like after the video. Don't forget to follow us on all our socials down below. We got Jamie's show on Sunday, famous aftermath show. We were just talking about the Charlton game, and we've got Phil's show on Monday, talking about anything else that might have happened, any more signings, or maybe new manager, and if everything like that, how Key's done. But don't forget to join us next Thursday. This time we'll be back previewing what game we got after that. Birmingham, oh God's sake!
Yeah, I was waiting for you to figure it out. Here we go. It comes thick and fast in the Championship, and it's hard going. So we ain't got much time, have we?
Nope. Well, hopefully it all turns around. Hopefully, will we all be buzzing next Thursday after a win? We don't know. We appreciate you all for watching, and we'll see you all next time.
The Leicester City machine is on the march again.
Leicester Fan TV presents a variety of content like fan discussions, match analysis, and engaging with Leicester fans worldwide. We want your views live, thanks to our sponsors, Everard's, Pucker Pies, Hologram, Take Me, Newbie & Co, and the Fox's Arms.
Want to watch more content like this? Hit the like button. Give us your views. Hit subscribe to Leicester Fan TV and make sure to follow us on all socials.